Let's get ready to remake! Welcome to the Remake Revolution here on McGTV. That's youtube.com/MikeMcGTV. And as always, I am your host and moderator, Mike McG. Joined here on the pilot episode of Remake Revolution by two members of the Three Geeks podcast, Mr. Dan Bauer and Mr. Max Andrews. Before we get into today's topic of a movie or franchise that we want to revisit, reboot, remake, kind of like Fantasy League, except with movies and all that good stuff, I want to quickly ask the guys if there's any big stuff heading their way from Three Geeks podcast, either podcast-wise or on their website, threegeeks.ninja. Any articles or reviews that are going to be up soon?
You can check us out at www.youtube.com/3geeksnetwork. We're going to be recording Sports Nerds tonight, right after we record this. So that's going to be a live podcast. So it won't be live by the time you hear this, but it will be live when we do it.
Do it live!
And also check out, I'm doing a write-up of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So look for that on 3geeks.ninja.
All right. And anything from Dan?
I just wrote a retrospective on Gene Wilder. It's a short bit. Also, I'm in the process of trying to get JT to cover every Jean-Claude Van Damme movie ever made. So I'm going to try to get all of those reviews up as soon as he writes them.
Isn't it true, though, if you start writing Jean-Claude Van Damme movie reviews now and you write like 4 every day, you won't be done till like 2037?
But only the main movies. like you don't have to do like, what was it, like Red Scorpion or stuff?
Sounds good. So you can check all that at youtube.com/3geeksnetwork or 3geeks.ninja, or follow them on Twitter at 3geekspodcast. I also want to, for this premiere episode, mention that it's not always going to be just me and the Three Geeks guys. The idea here is that Dan and Max are kind of helping me guinea pig, or I've been saying guinea pig so much this past weekend.
Stuck on it.
Oh man, I'm stuck on it. They're helping me test drive this pilot episode to kind of see how the format would work and everything like that. And eventually, we're going to actually have a little bit of mixing and matching up of other geeks and nerds from over at neverendingradicaldude.com. So ideally, episodes of goal would be me here as contributor and moderator, someone from the Three Geeks camp, and someone from the Nerd camp to kind of talk about these hypothetical movies we make up. All right, gentlemen, shall we quickly discuss today's target movie?
Target acquired.
For this premiere episode, I approached these two fine gentlemen about a particular comic book / TV / movie / toy franchise that I feel had its heyday in the late 90s and has kind of been there for a while ever since, but not really as big as it was in the mid or late 90s, and that was Todd McFarlane's Spawn. Really quick, guys, what are your impressions or what are your kind of thoughts on either the Spawn franchise or the 1997 movie starring Michael Jai White and John Leguizamo?
Now, the toys were cool. I didn't really read a whole lot of the comics. The movie, it had good intentions, but watching it now, it's not so good. The HBO series, however, was awesome. If we were going to redo Spawn, I would want something like that, or at least that being finished.
Yeah, it kind of left us on a very unsatisfying cliffhanger with the third season, I think.
Yeah, because it's just like, hey, I want to be good, and then it stops.
I hope that worked out for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a resurgence.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, I never really read the comic books, but I did watch the movie and I did see the HBO series. Spawn, to me, has always been better just as, like, single pictures. He's very iconic and very cool, but I find his story kind of hard to follow. So that's the problem I have with Spawn. But I mean, he's obviously looks super badass, and you got to dig that cape. If they were to remake it, I'd definitely give it another shot. But I've never been a huge fan of Spawn.
Okay, so we have someone from the camp of really enjoyed a particular story they were going with, but maybe not the movie story necessarily, something that was going on in the television show. And then we have someone from the camp of wasn't really into the story so much, but enjoyed the visual aspect of it in a way. I'll admit, around the mid-90s, I was pretty into Spawn at the time. I don't know, something about his visual I definitely liked. I remember McFarlane's artwork from his run on Spider-Man, and I kind of just followed him over to that property. I liked it at first, but then as I got a little bit older, and especially after the movie, I realized I've kind of felt it was trying too hard to be edgy and cool. Like really trying, a lot of the Image comic stuff I felt was really trying that at the time, to be extreme and have the word blood and everything and be very as dark and gritty as possible without any real character motivation about it. Just to kind of be like, we're dark and gritty because it's the 90s. That's my kind of thoughts about it. I would love to see a remake of Spawn, but kind of along the lines of what you were saying, Dan, something perhaps a little bit more in the style of the television show.
But the television show was itself being like, we're like the bad boys of animation because we're on HBO and we have scary child molesters. Really, that was an arc. I'm not just making that.
Sure you are.
Yeah. It actually has one of my favorite lines, and they get this like drugged up guy, and they think that he's doing all these murders, and he's like, I've been a good boy. I didn't hurt no girls. Yeah, that whole thing, that was good because it was on HBO and it was like dark and gritty. But I see what you're saying about how that gets transposed into just being cool. And yeah, that's not good. And that's kind of what like the Spawn movie was, because the whole animation of like Malbolgia and stuff was just so wrong.
Yeah, that was some pretty very 90s CGI.
Yeah, that was just a victim of the times. Like I don't think you can really blame like anybody for that one. I feel like that was probably some of the better stuff they could have done at the time.
Well, you could blame them because they still let it come out as a movie. I mean,
when it came out, it was cool.
But that was a substantial part of the movie. And he just looks like a giant rat, and who's thinking things into everybody's brain because his mouth is just like going nonstop for some reason.
And it's the voice of Megatron. So, well, that's why we're here today, to kind of maybe brainstorm how we could possibly tackle this particular project, what we would like to see as really devoted fans or kind of casual fans. What would draw us into a movie of this type? That's where we start off with round one here, known as the pitch.
The wind-up, the pitch.
So here in round one of the pitch, I'm going to actually start off with one of these two guys to kind of make a pitch for this movie or a log line. What is the particular vision or perspective they would want to see in this Spawn reboot or remake that we are creating in this podcast? How do you feel the story could be best served? What kind of style would you be looking for, and so forth? Maybe I'll start with Max.
For me, if I was gonna have the Spawn movie, I would do it in the superheroes, maybe like a Marvel superhero style, except that in the same way that I want to say like they pick a certain genre of movie that they want to make and kind of throw the superhero into that. So I would start with a horror movie and just kind of adapt it to Spawn. And the guy who's directing The Conjuring is doing a great job. I'd like to get someone like that to helm it and work from there. I think Spawn would be best served in a real horror vibe to it.
Dan.
I would agree with the horror vibe. First of all, you make it rated R.
Yes.
Because that's just kind of a given on this one. But I would do it like you follow some of the New York cops around, and they're investigating these horrible, horrific murders and stuff, and you realize maybe like halfway into the film that they're chasing Spawn, and you see the aftermath of what he does, and it pieces together the story like that. And then of course you have an epic showdown. You got to have the clown dude in there a couple times, because that keeps Spawn, as Max was saying earlier, at his best, with just being, an iconic figure, but not having to delve into a very muddled storyline.
I like what both of you guys are saying, actually, and that's actually what I was actually thinking with regards to the pitch for this type of movie, is that in order for it to have dark and grittiness that can work for an audience without seeming like it's trying too hard, definitely going along with what Max said, is mix more of a horror element into it. I like how you made the Marvel comparison there with regards to, Marvel right now is just trying essentially different genres of movies and putting superheroes into them. So make Spawn very much a horror-based story, and the less we see of Spawn full on, the better, because let's face it, when we saw him full on in the 90s movie, it wasn't that intimidating or horrific.
But that cape was glorious, man.
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to hate on these guys too much for the bad CG in that movie. I really feel like they were working with what they had there.
You can't help sometimes that movies get dated and so forth like that due to effects. And you're probably right, Max. They were working with what they had at the time. I'm just saying less is more with this hero in particular. Like again, I'm bringing it back to the animated series. What they did with him in the animated series was actually keep him in a lot of shadows. All you would see at times was like a pair of glowing green eyes. You'd see the cape definitely moving around, but it wouldn't be too cartoony, which is weird in saying that about a cartoon, essentially, is that it was very reserved and minimalistic in a way, and that worked best for that particular character. I agree with Dan. Let's keep it rated R. And this is an interesting angle to follow kind of an everyman throughout the story. Some officer or some detective.
What were the cops' names in that one? They had their own freaking comic book after.
Sam and Twitch.
Yes.
Oh yeah, man, I completely forgot about those two.
Sam was the big fat one, and Twitch was the little one with the mustache and the sharpshooter.
Yeah, and so I mean, we've already got the characters, for the vehicle of the movie, so like that's pretty much set in, and I agree that'd be a great way to get your foot in the door of this universe, and because it helps when you have someone relatable that's experiencing these things in the story. So I think that also is a good idea.
And for this particular property, I want to pose this follow-up question to you guys. Cinematic universe possibilities for this one, since it is from a comic book company, and Spawn has been known to share the Image universe with other superheroes, or do we keep it as its own thing?
I would keep it as its own thing. I think, like you're saying, the more you see of Spawn, the more ridiculous he gets. So if there's just too much exposure, then you're gonna lose whatever quality you had. I would definitely keep this as its own, separate from everything else.
You could throw the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in there.
Well, that would work.
They're still Image, right? Still New York. He can share pizza with them.
They're all urban legends. They live in the sewers. He lives in the alleys. Yeah. Well, moving on to round 2, the director.
Lights, camera, action.
Now here is where we can pitch some ideas for who would we want to helm this revitalized property, this major motion picture project. I'm gonna go to Dan first for this one.
Woody Allen. That would be the greatest Spawn movie ever. I don't really pay attention to a whole lot of action directors. If you're doing horror, you could use like the Pang brothers.
Now, what movies have they tackled before in the past?
Over here, they did The Messengers, which wasn't very good. I believe they did The Eye 1 and 2, but they've got a good eye for horror.
Pun intended.
Yes.
How about for Max?
I already kind of spoiled this one for myself. James Wan, who directed The Conjuring. I don't really dig horror movies, so it's got to be a very good horror movie for me to watch it. And I watched The Conjuring. It didn't scare me per se, but like it just creeps. It's very creepy for most of the movie, and I think that's the best horror. And it's hard to find somebody with that touch. I'd say James Wan, but I think he's on for another big project right now.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's dealing with our underwater friend, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
Really?
The Sea Man.
Yep, King of the Seas.
But I can't say enough good things about The Conjuring, and that's the creepy kind of like The Shining kind of horror, where it's not a lot of like jump scares. It just leaves you with that really creeped out feeling when you're done watching.
This is actually going to be a tiebreaker here, because I have to agree with Max on James Wan. That's actually, before we even started, that was the director I chose. I wrote him down before we even started recording. So that's weird that you and I were kind of on the same wavelength there, Max. Kudos.
Well, right now he's just, because again, I don't watch very much horror. The Conjuring is probably the last horror movie I watched, so...
As long as Spawn doesn't get like the uplifting ending, I'd be down.
I think James Wan would be able to kind of keep us down there in a very downbeat ending, or kind of leave it very hollow at the end. I'm sure he could manage that. And I got to agree with Max that there is this not outright terrifying thing about his movies, but they're very unnerving. And sometimes that sets you more on edge than just being booga booga scared, is that unknown waiting for you out there. I'd have to say, yeah, director James Wan could bring a lot of creepiness to the Spawniverse. Moving on to round 3, the cast.
From Brad Pitt to Joyce DeWitt, it's time to meet your cast.
Now here, with the cast, we don't really need to cast every single little part, but maybe each of us can pitch 2 or 3 roles, you know, if we're familiar with some of the characters, and who could we see in those roles. Definitely Spawn, you know, the main role that we want to kind of cast. But then there are a couple of others, such as perhaps Sam and Twitch, the detectives, now that we know we want to kind of follow an everyman urban legend horror type of movie. Who would play Clown? I heard he was mentioned earlier by one of you guys. And if we were to get into some of Spawn's backstory, who could play perhaps some supporting characters there? His wife, or I forget the name of his employer. Martin Sheen, whoever Martin Sheen played in the movie.
Yeah, James Wynn or something like that.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, Win. Let's start with Max this time around. Spawn, first up.
For Spawn, and I'd like him to be, you know, he's going to be horribly disfigured or covered up the whole time. So, I mean, you can kind of really cast anybody. I don't feel like the Spawn character is that important. Or, I mean, like, the actor who's playing Spawn, because, again, like, you know, he's not going to be saying much. It's going to be heavily affected when he's talking or doing things. So you don't need a lot from that. For Win, I would cast like a Joseph Gordon-Levitt, maybe.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, interesting choice.
Yeah, it's a bit younger, but I feel like he's got the chops, you know, for like, I haven't seen him in a role like this before, but I think he could pull it off really well. You know, kind of like evil, sadistic CIA guy who, you know, gets into this hell stuff. I don't know who I'd cast as the 2 cops. As the wife, I'd say like maybe a Zoe Saldana.
But you're saying ultimately whoever they cast as Spawn, so long as they can just inhabit the role in heavy makeup and effects and so forth, they'll be fine.
Yeah, because I mean, like, he's going to be, you know, that role is going to be literally covered up in a bunch of stuff the entire time. So it doesn't really matter who's there, you know. Like, I mean, I also don't feel like his Spawn was the most eloquent of characters and the most deep. That he's on a deep well that you need to draw from. So yeah, I mean, you can get anybody who's young enough to, you know, to truck around and all that stuff.
You'd want maybe an unknown then at that point?
Oh yeah, you could definitely go with that. I mean, somebody might surprise you. Yeah, I think the movie would be better served without a superstar in the major role.
Going to Dan now.
For the 2 cops, I was thinking about this when you were talking. I want John Goodman and Steve Buscemi.
Done. That is perfect.
I'm sold on that. Let's do it.
For Spawn, what if you made him completely CGI? I mean, it wouldn't be like, you know, House on Haunted Hill shitty CGI, because then you could do so much with it. I mean, you could just have him form out of nowhere. It'd be neat.
Just basically a mocap actor, essentially.
Andy
Serkis. Yeah.
Andy Serkis.
With the voice of James Earl Jones.
Okay, there we go. So there is some there's some casting going on there.
Like your picks for the 2 cops. I just want to say, Dan, like that. I want to see that movie of just those 2 guys. Like,
yeah, forget the Spawn movie now.
Much older now. And, you know, they'd have to play a lot on the, oh, man, and, you know, we're almost to our pension sort of deal.
Yeah.
And now they're seeing the craziest shit they've ever seen. I really, really like that, Dan. Good pick.
Thank you. For Win, I would use Kiefer Sutherland. And, yeah, I don't know about the wife. For Merlin, I want Ian McKellen.
Oh, yeah, I completely forgot about well, his name's not really it's Cogliostro, right?
Yeah. He said in the Spawn series, of which I am more versed, he has that line where he's like, "They called me Merlin once."
Some very interesting choices here for a bunch of different roles. I guess I'll go now for Spawn. I had a choice originally for like a name actor, someone you guys would probably recognize, but now that I've been listening to you guys talk about this idea of, you know what, Spawn, the less we see of Spawn, or, you know, the less we see of an actual recognizable face for Spawn, the more we can get into the story, perhaps. I'm inclined to go either way with you guys with regards to having either an unknown just in heavy makeup or in motion capture provide the movements for Spawn. But the thing is, with James Earl Jones, Dan, I kind of feel it'd be a little bit too recognizable. That would take me out of the movie. A little Idris Elba, perhaps, as the voice of Spawn. Or we could bring back Keith David. He could be fine.
As long as you don't tell, what's his face, the black guy from Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson.
The black guy from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, don't tell Ernie Hudson that you're casting any roles that Keith David might get, because that'll just make him salty.
So we'll have to revisit this idea. We'll come back to the voice maybe a little bit later. I gotta say, Max, I am with you for the Zoe Saldana casting. Dan, you know what? Kiefer Sutherland, I originally had Bryan Cranston for win, but he might feel a little too, at this point, a little too recognizable, and that might be a little bit, he might be a little too old, or appear a little bit too old for that particular role, but Kiefer Sutherland, I kind of feel would work best. Again, we can kind of contest some of this, because I know you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Max, as your pick. We'll come back to that. Totally on board for John Goodman and Steve Buscemi. I'm totally on board just for that movie in and of itself. Forget the Spawn stuff. Yeah. For Clown, we haven't mentioned Clown yet.
Oh, yeah.
My choice for that, I know last time it was John Leguizamo in a short and fat suit. Why not just get an actual short person involved, an actual little person? Get some Peter Dinklage up in that clown stuff.
Peter Dinklage in fat suit. I don't know.
I don't know.
Get John Leguizamo back. That's the one role I didn't hate him in.
All right.
Yeah, that's my problem with him though, is I don't like him.
Yeah, but I feel like that helps the character. You know, if you already don't like him,
you could do Danny DeVito.
All right,
dude, he's crazy now. It's okay.
A couple of things we'll come back to in the discussion section for casting. I have a bonus one here, and in this world that we've kind of grounded Spawn a little bit more in reality and urban myth, this might work better as, again, just a cameo like it was in the movie, even though it would actually kind of be a full-on cameo, perhaps, hinting at the more spiritual or otherworldly side of things. Christina Hendricks for the angel bounty hunter, Angela, but she would never show up as Angela in the full costume. She would just kind of be there investigating on her own, but there's hints that there's something otherworldly about her.
I'm down for that. I like that pick.
All right.
She could even do the full thing at the end, you know. It just turns into this giant thing. Then, you know, John Goodman is like scared, speechless by everybody.
Maybe second or third movie.
I don't know. I mean, you can make this into a 3-hour epic.
Yeah. Moving on to round 4, marketing and release.
Marketing the movie and release.
This might be a little bit of a tricky one here, but what would we want to kind of see to prep us for the eventual screening of this movie? What would posters reveal? What would trailers reveal? Would we want trailers to not reveal so much? What would be a cool tagline for this type of movie? Are there Happy Meals involved? I seriously doubt it for Spawn, but whatever. Let's try it with Dan this time, first round.
You see, look, Mommy, I got the demon clown in my Happy Meal. I would do a teaser trailer. I would do one trailer that also has a Red Band version, because I love Red Band trailers. They make me happy. You could have the Spawn burrito. It just has like a black grain to it.
That's a very edible burrito.
You know what though, Dan? I'm rolling with you on this. You merge a Taco Bell on this.
Yeah.
And like, you get some sort of Spawn Hellfire burrito.
Yeah, and he'd be like, "It's hotter than hell." I don't know. What else could you do? Definitely posters. I'd do posters of like have Spawn, whoever we pick as clown, and the two cops just with scared ass looks.
So they'd be like character posters.
Yeah, and just have Spawn and a release date with that cool ass Spawn clock on the bottom. That'd be neat.
Oh, the counter, right? It's his power counter or whatever. Okay. Max, how about for you?
A teaser trailer and 2 full trailers, including the Red Bands. Since it's going to be rated R, obviously you want to have a Red Band trailer to complement your other trailers. Before the trailers, I would follow the clown around it wouldn't really be anything from the movie. I would film specifically for the trailers. But I feel like, with his, he's like the middleman between hell and earth. And, he's one of the top lieutenants in hell. So, like, there's a lot of stuff he can be doing behind the scenes. And that's what I'd get you, and I'd try to get you that creepiness into the trailers. I'm warming up to Dan's burrito idea more and more. So we can run with that. And that'll be the lighter side of things. And again, you can use the clown to kind of, like make things funny and silly or whatever. And do that. Like the posters for Spawn, I would keep him like you were saying, heavy in shadow, like maybe just show the eyes and, like some faintness of the cape and just kind of keep him very, very mysterious. And because like we were saying, less is more. And I think everything would be better served for it. Tagline, I'm kind of stuck on that one. I can't think of anything catchy like right off the top of my head. But, just something about hell in the tagline.
I got one more idea.
Okay, go for it, Dan.
For the Red Band trailer, you make it like it's going to be like a Batman movie. Like you're following like the cops running after something.
Yeah.
And you see like a shadow going across the rooftops just in front of them. But when they get there, the bad guys are all like bloody and nasty. Mm-hmm. And they're like taking pictures, and then it pans down this alleyway, and you see Spawn's eyes, and that's it.
Yeah, that works for a teaser for sure.
Yeah, I'd watch that. Yeah, and for the Red Band, it had to be especially like gory and stuff. Whatever he did to him.
Yeah, it's got to be like shredded body parts and stuff, all sticking onto walls and shit.
That would definitely
it'd be cool too if Spawn, because like since he's from hell, like if he kind of like brings like this hell presence along with him, like everything kind of dies and stuff, like starts to wither when he's around, and it's more like the nasty like bugs and stuff like that. So when you come across these like obviously freshly dead bodies, like they're kind of decayed more than they should be, and there's all kinds of like stuff eating them and stuff like that.
That's a good idea.
He leaves like flaming footprints behind him for a while.
Like if he uses a bunch of his powers to do it, then there's some definite signs. Like, yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool.
You got me thinking now about a good tagline for this, because really everything that you guys mentioned with regards to teaser trailers, having a Red Band trailer that is very brutal. Also, yeah, I'm kind of on board for the burrito as well.
I'm telling you, it's the way to go, man.
I liked what you said, Max, about the viral marketing, how there's stuff made specifically for the trailers, perhaps, or for like teasers that we're following around the clown, but it doesn't really have anything to do with the actual story that's going to be in the movie. Like what you were saying before about like what they should have done with the Justice League stuff in Batman v Superman is that should have been the viral marketing in a way.
Yes.
Was the Justice League inclusion. I like that. I like the idea that Spawn visually will have an impact on his environment, not just that like, oh, here's Spawn, but it's like he'll cause a lot of decay and chaos in his wake. And that actually brings me to a tagline I think hopefully could work, and it kind of harkens back to a lot of kind of cheesy lines perhaps that were touched upon in the 80s with horror films, but I feel could work again with this, especially with this modern resurgence of nostalgia for those types of movies. The tagline is he's back to bring hell on earth. Or if we can definitely whittle that down to something else.
Yeah, no, I'm rolling it around in the old noggin here.
Yeah. It's not bad.
It's a good start. I don't know if it's it, but that's a good start.
Well, here's what we can do is we still got a couple of decisions that we got to kind of hammer down, and what we can do is come to agreements and compromise in the discussion section here.
Loose ends, let's discuss.
And basically what I'll do is I'll bring up some of the things in which we're not quite sure which way we want to go and see if we can float it one way or the other. Let's get into the cast. This is where we still have a lot to decide on with regards to who we want as what. I agree totally with you guys to have it be someone just there to kind of placehold for the effects. Is there a middle ground between Idris Elba or James Earl Jones for the voice?
I'm cool with Idris Elba, honestly.
You switched over.
I like Keith David. No, that's he's got that gravelly voice, and here we go, Ron Perlman.
All right. Well, now we've just added more stuff. Let's see. Let's keep it with your original idea then. So, Dan, you were willing to compromise James Earl Jones for Idris Elba. Now let's bring it between me and Max now. Idris Elba or Keith David? You know what? I'll for the sake of nostalgia stuff, let's bring Keith David back into the fold. Would that be okay with you, Dan?
Sure, I'm cool. I mean, you could throw like Ernie Hudson a bone and have him play an extra somewhere.
Okay. Just bring back his character.
It would be kind of cool to have a Ghostbuster in a Spawn movie. I think that'd be really funny.
We'll get to the crossover stuff down the line, gentlemen. Keep the ideas in check. Focus here. All right. But that is a good idea. Effects heavy, mocap, makeup, voice. Yeah, Keith David. That's how you tap into the nostalgia vein there. Moving on to clown. Would we want to strike another nostalgia chord and bring back John Leguizamo, or would we go the way of DeVito? Because Dinklage at this point might be too big and recognizable and would take you out of the movie probably, so I'll take Dinklage off the table. Between Leguizamo and DeVito now.
I'm going to have to say DeVito.
Yeah.
You're conceding Leguizamo for DeVito?
Absolutely.
All right. Danny DeVito is our clown. To Jason Wynn, Max had Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Dan had Kiefer. Would we want to go maybe a little bit of a younger route with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, or would we want somewhat older and seasoned Kiefer?
I mean, he's supposed to be like a boss in the CIA, isn't he?
Yeah, JGL might be a little young for the role. I mean, you could, age him up with effects or makeup, but I mean, Kiefer Sutherland is not a bad pick, so I can concede that one.
Jason Wynn, played by Kiefer Sutherland. What we have here is a finalized cast list, a director in mind, and a style in mind. Now, what I'm going to do is kind of a bonus follow-up. This probably won't always be as smooth as it is. We might get into some heated debates regarding other properties, but since we were all able to kind of compromise pretty well on some final decisions, please check out my Twitter feed, Mike McG TV, or over on the Three Geeks Podcast Twitter feed, because what I'll do is I'll actually bring this all together in a movie poster format, displaying these casting choices. I'm going to take some of the suggestions that you guys had for marketing. The one final thing for discussion. Let's hammer down a tagline for sure. That was my suggestion for the tagline. Let's rework it a little bit more. Would we want to keep the motif of Hell on Earth in the tagline?
Yeah, I think for a Spawn movie that's absolutely appropriate and almost necessary.
The counterpoint to that is every movie that's had like Hell on Earth never really delivers Hell on Earth.
Well, I mean, and this wouldn't either, but that's the whole deal. Like Spawn, he's Hell Spawn. That's that's his whole thing. You're dealing with the devil and hell and all that stuff, but you're fighting in the streets. It's New York, right? He's based in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky though, because you don't want to be too. It's easy to sound corny.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's balance.
I was brainstorming a tagline when you guys were talking, and I came up with "You'll believe a demon can flay."
Well, just for the comedic side of it, that does have a good play on superhero genres as in and of itself. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, you know what? I've completely forgot something. When would we want to release this? This goes into market and release. Is this an October film or summer film?
No, I wouldn't do this one in the summer. And especially since we're trying to keep, like the Spawn and like there's only gonna be like maybe one or two big like action set pieces. I would release this one in October.
Okay.
And because then you get more of that creepiness that helps the whole vibe.
That might actually play into the tagline a little bit, maybe. How about something simple? This October, Hell Arrives.
Yeah, that works. I like that.
Okay.
Short and sweet.
Dan, are you cool with that?
Yeah.
Or? All right.
That's cool.
In that way, it's not really playing too much into a cheese factor or a corniness in that sense. It leaves it pretty wide open there. If you're not familiar with Spawn, you'll be like, Hell Arrives. Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I like that. And yeah, it's very good. It's right to the point. You cut right through all the BS.
Especially if you combine this with, like, saying a James Wan film. Because at this point, people will know, like, James Wan for those types of movies as well. And they'll be like, ooh, Hell Arrives. I've got to check this out if he's doing it. I'll have a finalized kind of image that we can share on our social networks and see how the audience takes to that.
If we, like you're saying, if we get to a little more heated debate about who should be in and who should be out, if we can't come to an agreement, then if we have the audience, we post it to Twitter like, hey, between these three, who would you like to see?
Thank you, gentlemen, very much for test driving this new idea with me. How'd it feel?
That's good. I really like this.
Yeah.
I'll definitely keep you guys in the rotation. Like I said, we're going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to try one fully with the Nerdcast just to see how they do with the format, and then we'll start crossing over brands and so forth. And because I would love to kind of hear you guys bounce ideas off of Jason, Fury, and Mark, and the others over at Neverending Radical Dude. But so far, so good. So that was our fantasy movie casting and presentation for a Spawn remake or reboot here on the Remake Revolution. Thank you again for listening. Thanks again to Dan Bauer and Max Andrews from the Three Geeks podcast. Check them out at youtube.com/3Geeks Network or on 3geeks.ninja. Again, I am Mike McG here on McGTV, youtube.com/Mike McG TV, and Hollywood, listen to us and pay us.
Please.
I like that too.
All right, gentlemen, have a good night.